And I'm looking at the odds. I see Ohio State's actually favored to make the playoff still, and that would be based on either a TCU or a USC loss. Do you think the Buckeyes get into the playoff?
I actually don't, but I understand the rationale. TCU is facing a really good Kansas State team, a team that had some injuries in their first matchup, and certainly is capable of beating them. I mean, they've shown that this year. And if they lose that game, it'll be an interesting debate because they'll have already beaten this Kansas State team. They will not have won the Big 12, but neither Ohio State didn't even make the Big 10 championship game. So that will be a fascinating debate between, a team that most people would say is more talented, but another team that has taken care of its business a little bit better than Ohio State did. So I think that would be the likely path for Ohio State. USC, I really do think will beat Utah this time around, but Utah's really good in these games as well. I mean, Utah was terrific in last year's Pac-12 championship game. As Kyle Whittingham pointed out the other day, they really relish the role of being overlooked, and everyone kind of thinks USC is going to roll and Caleb Williams is going to win the Heisman. So, you can never count out a Kyle Whittingham coach team, especially in a big game, but I just really like the way USC is playing.
Talking to your colleagues, it feels TCU's safe, though. TCU's still in with a loss because Kansas State would be like 7 or 8 then with a win.
Correct, yeah. And again, I just think it's so important that TCU will have already beaten that team.
Yeah.
It's not like one of these situations in other leagues where you don't play a round robin and then your only matchup against the team that ultimately beats you is in the championship game. TCU has a win against these guys. They've beaten everybody else in the conference, obviously, to be 12-0. So, it's sort of a more unique case than we always get, when a team loses a championship game matchup and tries to get it as an at-large. So I think they'd have a terrific case as well. And it's why, Ohio State, again, they had it right there. They had the game at home with a chance to punch their ticket to Indianapolis and essentially secure a spot even if they lost in the championship game. And they didn't get it done. And so, that's the margin that you're dealing with in a 4-team system.
I'm glad they mentioned it several times last night on the TV show that TCU is number one with strength of record. It's not that they got beat, but it's what transpired. I mean, the decision for Day to punt, and then you're not putting a safety back there, and time again, you're getting beat deep. I was shocked by how Day got out-coached.
Well, right, and Day, I think Jim Knowles really got out-coached.
Yeah, sure.
He was very, they brought in Jim Knowles and paid him a lot of money as defensive coordinator to prevent this type of thing. And, he was very, he took the blame after the game. He didn't try to say it was the players or this or that. Both he and Ryan Day were very accountable, I thought, after that game. But, this is the thing. Ohio State's defense, other than the 2019 season, I know they were better this year. They certainly were better this year. But, they haven't shown up on that side of the ball enough, honestly, in the Ryan Day era. Other than 2019 when they had Chase Young and Jeff Okudah, who were two of the top 3 draft picks. Other than that season, it's been a bit of an adventure for them defensively. And there's a lot of talk around the Ohio State program that as much as Ryan Day has improved the offense and improved the quarterback position, has it become too much of a finesse program, too much of a softer program is the word that's being used, which you never want to hear if you're a football player. But that's sort of the buzz right now. I did believe, guys, that Michigan was the tougher team entering the game.
Yep.
I also thought without Blake Corum or limited Blake Corum, it was going to be tough for them. But they showed they could win in other ways, and that's really encouraging for their team going forward.
Great point. They win the game without their best player. Now with the emotional win and the turnaround, can Purdue keep it close Saturday night?
Well, here's the thing about the Big Ten championship game. It's different from every other conference title game I've always felt, because you're taking teams that have played in weather conditions, in adverse weather in many cases for about a month, and putting them inside. And that always favors the team with more talent and more speed. So, it's usually, Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State against a team like Wisconsin or Iowa or Northwestern from the West. Those teams are overmatched in that environment. They almost need the weather. The thing with Purdue's got a real quarterback. They've got a real receiving core. They can chuck it around. They've got a very aggressive head coach in Jeff Brom. So I think that makes it a little bit more interesting than if this was Iowa or Wisconsin or Minnesota playing Michigan in this matchup. So I'm not saying Purdue's going to win, But I think Purdue can at least do some things to Michigan's defense on an indoor, no weather is a factor type setting that makes it a little bit more interesting.